Welcome, everybody, to the Amateur Theory Podcast. Did you miss us?
I missed us.
So you may or may not have noticed that there has not been a whole lot of episodes as of late. I think our last time we had an episode out was in the summer. Because it was whatever Kong versus Godzilla was our last one.
That was straight up spring, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, even older. But we're back. But we're changing the kind of conception of the show because there's just a lot of stuff going on in people's lives. It's hard to schedule everyone, every week. For a while, we're thinking monthly. Even that was kind of difficult. So we are changing this to an annual show because we had a lot of fun making last year's best of video. That was just a good time. I really enjoyed that conversation. And even though we don't really have time to do the podcast, I don't really want to let it die either. I just like having it here. So it's good enough for me to do once a year, just talk about the movies and things of that year, and then just let it be that. So if you're subscribed, don't leave us. We'll be here again at the end of this year. We actually had to reschedule this one because we were trying to get it out before the end of the year, but then just issues came up, had to be moved. But we're getting it pretty early. I think it's okay. But I guess before we get into movies, because we're going with this time capsule idea, how was 2021? Just very generally, doesn't have to be long. Just like a top line. What do you guys think?
Dude, I don't even remember 2021 anymore. It was like simultaneously like the longest and also the quickest thing that's ever happened in my life.
It really did feel just like, in a lot of ways, 2020 part 2. Mostly, when I say a lot of ways, I mostly just mean the pandemic. It's like crazy, it's still happening. I'm hopeful that at the end of this year, we'll finally be able to say, hey, remember that COVID thing? That was dumb, but I don't know. I have less optimism. That's the biggest difference. I have less optimism about it than I did at the end of last year.
Yeah, Braden, I can't help but feel like I've heard that exactly those words in exactly those order, like in when was it? Like winter of 2020 or so. We'll see.
Now, my friend, you have to take the doomer pill. We're going full doomer mode on this.
So on that positive note, let's get right into it. Best movies of 2021, right? And I can start. So I saw a lot of, actually, before we talk about that, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. We wanted to just briefly talk about the movies that are out right now, right, that you might be interested in. This is going to be a spoiler-free section. We're just going to kind of give our feelings about the movies that are out that we've seen and just kind of give you your top-line opinions of them, maybe chat about them a bit. Start out with Spider-Man, new Spider-Man, because I believe we've all seen that. So my opinion about the new Spider-Man movie is that I liked it. It was the animated Spider-Man made live action, essentially. They just stole the plot, and then it's that again. But I liked that movie a lot, and this one did it not quite as good as that one, in my opinion. I would say that the animated one is better, but this was still good. It was fun to see all the old Spider-Mans all get together. Hopefully that's been enough in the trailers and things. That's not a spoiler.
Yeah, can we spoil that?
Yeah.
Whatever, now you know. It's too late.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry.
But it was I enjoyed it well enough. It was the acting was decent. There was a few plot hole kind of stuff that just, the actions of the characters didn't make a whole lot of sense. Especially Doctor Strange. His whole role in that movie was just so weird. And somehow you're like super smart, but also like really dumb that you managed to. I don't know. There's complaints to be made about that, but it's I get that it was all just an excuse to make the plot move as it did, and I'm not gonna criticize it too heavy, because once you get past all the thinking too hard about it, you just let the roller coaster ride happen, as is the case with most kind of Marvel superhero movies, and this one was a pretty good one. So overall I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all grew up with, or we've been with the Spider-Man movies since the Raimi films, and I know, at least for me personally, a lot of people our generation have a big fondness for those, and it's nice to see some of that come back. I mean, Willem Dafoe's always fun to watch on screen, and he's back as the Green Goblin. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I'm not saying this is some intellectually stimulating masterpiece, but I wasn't expecting that. I mean,
yeah,
you know what to expect. It's a Spider-Man movie. It's a Marvel movie. Does that sound good to you? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. On reflection of that movie, I think, I don't know if you guys have ever read much fan fiction of anything, okay? But I suspect that movie is a pretty good sell for what fan fiction can do. It's like the whole premise is essentially it felt like fans wanted to see something happen, and they made it happen for you, just for you. It's like, it worked. It's fun, right? It's fun to see all those characters interact. It didn't sweat the details, as has been pointed out, but I didn't want to watch all three Spider-Mans beat all the bad guys because I cared about details, So yeah, no, I agree. I thought it was fun.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Moving on to The Matrix. So the new Matrix movie, I actually just recently saw the Half in the Bag episode on The Matrix. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but they actually gave a pretty positive take on the movie. And so I respectfully listened and totally disagreed. I thought the movie was bad, for sure. And it kept on doing the same thing, which you can play as smart because it's self-aware. But to me, being self-aware and doing something bad doesn't make it good, right? It's still just the bad thing. And this movie so much would just do there's always a problem in sequels, especially long reboot sequels, where they just redo the old movie. But this one is so unashamed about doing it that they show you the clip of the old movie. They'll take straight up a scene from the first Matrix, show you the scene, and then they'll be like, remember that? Here's that with new actors. The same thing. Isn't that a mind-blowing experience? And it's I don't know. I don't know if and I understand, there's all this meta stuff that they're doing there. And so I don't know if either of you guys liked that. That was interesting to me, but it didn't change the main fact that it was just the ultimate retread. And so I didn't care for it that much.
No, yeah, I totally see where you're coming. Because the film, well, at least the first half, is very meta and self-referential. And I would say it kind of does try to do a critique of nostalgia, member berries, it does comment on that. And I can understand someone being annoyed by that, because while it is commenting on it, it still is doing it, essentially. But I thought it was kind of interesting. I would say I liked it more than I disliked it. I'm very ambivalent. I thought the first half or so was kind of interesting, and that I could see what they were trying to go for. But then the rest of the movie just kind of falls into sort of like some generic action type thing, but the action in this movie is rather subpar for a Matrix film. Like, it's because the Matrix as a franchise, especially that first movie, is kind of like known for revolutionizing like action sequences in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And even in the sequels, like, depending on like whether you like those or not, like most people agree the action sequences in those, or at least some of them, like, are still pretty, you know, hefty, like pretty exciting stuff. Whereas in this movie, it all felt very just I don't know. That's the thing. Like, at the end of the day, I would actually recommend this movie just because, at the very least, I think it's somewhat interesting because it tries to be a little bit different from all the reboots, you know, and sequels that, you know, we're bombarded with. But I totally understand why someone would dislike this film. And it's one of those things where I've been looking at people's reactions. There's people that, you know, hate this, but then also people that love it, which always in my case, I've noticed I'm always, when it comes to that kind of thing, I'm always in the middle for whatever reason. So it's, I mean, if you have HBO Max, like, it's right there. Like, you're not really going to lose anything by watching it. And that's probably why it gets my recommendation, because it's so easy to see. And who knows, you may love it, but I don't blame you if you walk away completely unsatisfied.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like hate that I saw it. I know that if this movie was the same movie but not The Matrix, right? The exact same plot, everything's the same except for that, you know, this is like a separate thing, I wouldn't have liked it straight up. But the fact that they, like, you know, it's like, oh, remember this guy? And it's like, oh, I do remember that guy. But then I kind of hate myself that I know that it worked, that they did the thing. Did we lose Adam?
I'm here. My camera suddenly stopped working.
All right.
Nice.
Let's keep that in. But okay, well, we'll end on that note. Is there a glitch in the Matrix? Is that what's happening?
Just like the movie, no doubt.
Yeah.
I'll try and fix it. You keep the conversation.
Yeah. Have you seen the new Disney?
I have not, and honestly, I keep forgetting that there has been a new Disney movie until I go on like Letterboxd or something and I see people reviewing this film and I'm like, oh yeah, that exists. And then I'll just completely forget about it when I move on with my day. And it's I don't know, like, a lot of Disney stuff I've seen, at least as an adult, has just been because, you know, I'll go with my family or something to see it. So it's not like I'm completely disinterested, but also, like, just because a film's Disney doesn't necessarily mean that I will be interested in. Like, I
Fair enough.
heard it's good. I think I've heard it's good. Actually, like I said, I really don't know much about this film, so.
My thought, or actually, Adam, you go first.
Oh, okay. So I have seen this movie. And I mean, like a bunch of Disney and Pixar will, like, pretty much every year come out with some relatively acclaimed animated feature. There isn't really another studio that makes like these acclaimed animated pictures. I mean, like DreamWorks and like I can't even think.
Illuminations, man.
Do they do things still? Right. And so you know, I was hoping, because the best of those types of movies, those Pixar Disney ones, are like often very like emotionally affecting. They speak to some like some aspect of the human condition that I think can find very touching. And I have to say that I don't know. I could tell that this movie was built to do that same thing, but it didn't work on me for some reason. I spent some time thinking about why that might be, maybe that part of it is just that I think that aspects of the family dynamic that was shown, because to give a little context here, the whole movie is, without getting into spoilers, basically is just a single family, okay? And we're following a main character who doesn't fit in with this family, okay? And there's a kind of a supernatural, like, harks back to the magical realism kind of genre framework to put that situation in, right? And I don't know, maybe part of it is just that I couldn't directly relate to this exact situation. I felt, or not relate perfectly. That said, a lot of songs were fun. I liked and it was memorable. So yeah, it was good, but and this is purely a preference thing, I could easily see how that movie could absolutely, like if it was something that you could relate to, I could absolutely see that being really affecting. But yeah. What were your thoughts?
So I'm gonna keep this brief.
Okay.
Basically, I tend to think that Disney movies tend to be pretty good. I tend to like the Pixar ones more, but I have just I'm not a huge fan of Disney music. Like just the Disney style of music, the show tune, like that kind of thing, just I don't vibe with very well. So when a movie has a bunch of that in it, that's like a minus points. And that's unfair, right? It has nothing to do with how good it is or whatever. It's just I'm not that into that. So, for any of those, whether it be Frozen or any movie with just a lot of singing in it, that's just, I'm never going to like it as much as the ones without that. But given that it has the singing, it's not bad, right? It's a Disney movie. It's Disney. I'm not, if you like Disney, watch it. If you don't think that Disney's that great, then this is not going to change your mind, I don't think. And then, we're going to move on past this section because I want to get to the favorite movies. But just really quick, Don't Look Up. It's a big deal on Netflix right now. I liked it. I'll just leave it at I liked it. If it's on Netflix, I think you should watch it. Adam, what do you think? Yes or no?
So it's kind of funny because Braden and I had some conversations about this earlier, and there was like a lot of disagreement about some things. But if he's going to leave it at I like it, I can confidently say, yeah, I like it. Too.
Fair enough.
Yes.
I think this is what I think is fair to say is that I think Adam, you said that you thought it was, or our other brother said it was too preachy. Did you agree with him? Do you think that this movie is too preachy?
Well, it is the job of a satire film to be preachy. Like satire feeds off of the message. It like satire cannot exist without the message.
But was it too preachy and not enough to smart of a way, or I'm trying to remember what your criticism was.
And so our brother Connor, I can see where he's coming from with that. It certainly was like, I don't know if I would say it's preachy. I do think that it was a little bit like kind of bludgeoning, but I don't know if that's always bad is the problem, is the thing. So I'm not going to go say I'm not as strong as Connor, our brother, did not like it very much, if that wasn't clear already. And I liked it, but my issue with it was a little bit different, which is basically that if a film is going to be that kind of relentless and unsubtle, which is honestly, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think satire can take a lot of different directions and stuff like that. I just think that it should have gone like full, like gonzo crazy, and yet it always had like this veneer of seriousness while it was doing it. And because of that, I felt like it would have been more effective if it was more I don't know, like, I guess humorous. Like if it was took its like really blatant message, then you could do something really funny with that. And it's ostensibly kind of a comedy. Satires usually are. And there isn't any rule that satire has to be like totally funny all the time. But then I would expect it to maybe be a little bit more subtle. So I guess I can kind of see where Connor's going. But these issues I have with the movie are not enough for me to say I really dislike it. I did like it, I thought, and yeah, I vibed with it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So all right, those are I think the most major movies out right now. So if you're interested in them, I would say check them all out. None of them are so horrendous that you shouldn't, especially if it's available on streaming for free, which all but one of these are. So definitely check them out. So favorite movies of the year, right? So I can go first here. I have a movie in mind, but I'll leave it up to you guys. Did anyone have a movie that they want to talk about as what they think the best movie is?
You want to go first?
So, yeah, everyone just say it. Just everyone say their thing. Not a description of why, but everyone just say the movie.
Okay.
And then we'll just move on to a general discussion.
Sounds good.
All right, so JL, what's your movie?
Dune. I don't think anyone here is surprised to hear that from me.
All right, Adam.
Bo Burnham's Inside.
Interesting. And then mine was No Time to Die. Also probably not very shocking, if you know me. But okay, I have. Has everyone seen all three of all our movies?
Unfortunately, no, I haven't seen Dune. Yeah, I still haven't seen it.
Wow.
And I have not seen Inside or anything by Bo Burnham, actually. I hear he's a person that exists.
Awesome. In theory, he's alive.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put him as. I respect it. Like I'm not going to argue with that you couldn't have picked it or whatever. But I don't think of that as a movie. I think of it more as a creative stand-up special. So it's interesting that you would kind of elevate it to that level of not only a movie, but also the best movie after all of these, I think, pretty good movies this year. But I mean, like, it is a very, because I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's literally a guy with a camcorder. Like, there's no actors, there's no scenes, right? It's him.
Oh, there are scenes.
There's scenes and there's scripts. At one point, he uses a sock puppet to have some dialogue, right? But it's one guy. It's one guy in his bedroom, not even like sets. Like he has sets in the sense that he sets up sets in his bedroom.
It's just experimental and art house, man. Film doesn't always have to be a narrative.
Fair enough. Yeah, it does feel. It does feel. It certainly is experimental. It is. And it is very kind of. I could see why you'd say it's more than a stand-up, because he's making a lot of. He pontificates a lot, and not everything is necessarily a joke. But it still feels like a stand-up to me, and I would never say like a Dave Chappelle special is a movie. And as much as I could like it, but I just would never call it a movie.
But there's a narrative to it, so I don't know. I'm gonna stand by my choice.
Like I said, I'm not trying to debate you. It was an interesting pick. What made it your favorite?
Let's see. So JL brought up it's like an art film, and I saw this year a legitimate, like, really just very art. It was clearly going for art film, and that movie was The Green Knight. Okay. And I was thinking about The Green Knight, and The Green Knight I liked. I have some, I don't know if criticism's the right word. I have some reasons that I wouldn't put it as my favorite, but it certainly left an effect on me. So, like, art film kind of is in my mind, but my major issue with The Green Knight, I felt like, is that it in order to in order to fit its style, in order to become its style, I guess, it needed to sacrifice a lot of audience goodwill in the form of like basically taking up time. Like it sounds very like plebeian of me to say like the art film was boring, but like a lot of it was very boring, right? And so and again, I said I liked The Green Knight, and part of the reason I did like The Green Knight is because I know we're talking about Inside and I'm talking about The Green Knight, but it's going to give some context to it, I feel like. After the end of The Green Knight, I thought about that movie for a really long time because it left a really big impression on me by the end. Okay, it made me think about what it wanted me to think about. Okay, so because of that, I like that movie. I was bored through big sections of it, but I liked it in retrospect because it made me feel something, and by the end. And so ultimately, and there's a lot of movies that I liked that were really fun and were not boring and had a bunch of cool stuff the entire time, but they didn't leave very much of an impact. I didn't think about those movies long after they were finished. So why is Inside my favorite? Because Inside did what The Green Knight did, and I liked it the entire way through. I was riveted the whole time. And I was riveted by this guy. When Braden is saying like that it's just a guy in his room making his sets, like as in the cameras and microphones that he's using to do it are just scattered all over the place. There's no attempt to hide them whatsoever. In fact, they are part of the framing of multiple shots, right? And all this while he's doing like this kind of like comedy, but even in the middle of the movie, it's like he stops trying to even be funny anymore. And he does a song about how he's not even trying to be funny anymore. And like how he can't be funny anymore because you can't be very funny being in a room just doing nothing, which is kind of funny on it itself. But my point is like the movie was just so clever, so smart. I always was in the space that like the film was taking me. And by the end, I was like really, really affected by the point, the kind of the narrative where his character went from the beginning of that movie to the end. And the songs are great. It often is very funny. There's just, I can't say enough great things about it. Bo Burnham's Inside. Best movie 2021.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, Jail. Dune. So I gotta say that Dune was just fantastic. Like, Adam, you haven't seen it. You should. It's great. I have a lot of things that I could say about it, but what makes it your favorite movie of the year?
All right, so I am completely biased. I should say that up front because I'm a big fan of the original novel that the movie's based on. I've read it multiple times. I reread it right before the movie came out. And I'm even one of like 10 people on Earth that like the David Lynch version of the film. So I was really excited for this film. Because I learned that Denis Villeneuve was directing, and the last time I was this excited for a movie to come out was when he did Blade Runner 2049. So the man has proven himself to be very good at sci-fi, and he delivered the goods here. Like, Dune is the novel that is a very like dense, like just heavy book. There's a lot going on. Like, a lot of thematic ideas, and just the world building is very, intricate. Like, there's just a lot going on, so it's kind of hard to put that all on the screen. And yet I think he managed to do it without being like too confusing. Like, obviously I kind of like know everything, but just trying to view it as an outsider who's not familiar with Dune, like I think he managed to portray the story in a way that isn't like too like confusing, where things just don't come out of left field, unlike the David Lynch movie, which is
if I can just do
exposition nonstop, and that movie still doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so I am that person. I'm that person who I didn't know anything about Dunes except for there was worms in it. That was the only, and that it was confusing. Those were the two things I knew about Dune, that there was worms and it was confusing. So going into this movie, I was like kind of a little like, oh man, is this going to be some weird heady thing that I don't really get? And I was very pleasantly surprised that no, like I understood what was happening the entire time. There was not a moment of confusion or I didn't understand something that was going on. It was just very, very clear, and nothing had to be explained to me. There was no point in the movie where some guy comes on and it's like, the reason this is happening right now is da-da-da-da, right? They just do it, and it just makes sense. And so, I was really happy that was the case.
Yeah, and the movie's very graciously paced. Like the movie's I think like 2.5 hours, and yet I saw it twice, and like I did not really feel the length of this movie just because I was so riveted the whole time. Like the cinematography is like fantastic. Like, you know, it's this sci-fi otherly world, but like these like just shots, you know, it's beautiful. Mwah. And I watched this twice in theaters, once in IMAX, and I realized like that's a different experience a little bit than watching it at home, say on HBO Max. But like even the sound design, it uses kind of a lot of, this is a recent thing in movies where it's just like very rumbly and overwhelming, which gets annoying at times in movies, but I thought it really fit here, like, because the sound was just helped, like, you know, it accentuated the like just like the majestic feel of these like vast, like otherworldly, like other planetary images, you know. It's like,
yeah, that was actually
vast,
my
like
favorite parts.
Yeah, like this just like vast sea of sand.
Yeah, they managed to do like a sci-fi otherworldly sound without making it cheesy sci-fi music, which I really appreciated.
Yeah, just it's like it's about as good of an adaptation as you can get of this material, I think. Like, so that like someone who's like you, Brayden, like who's not that familiar, you know, with the book already, can just come in and still enjoy it themselves. And like that's the thing, it is like a part one. So like I knew that, I think you probably knew that, but I'm just imagining someone who doesn't know anything about Dune coming into this movie and then just seeing part one, and the movie just ends and nothing's tied up in a neat little bow or anything. Just being like, what happened here? Like I said, like I'm biased. I knew what to expect. I did think it was funny that in all the promotional material, like Zendaya's like very like at the forefront of the promotional material. And since I read the book, I knew like that character's not in the first half of the story, like at all. So I knew that she would be hardly be in the movie, but I thought that was just funny.
Yeah, that was so I watched it with my girlfriend, who was mostly excited because of Zendaya. Like, she is a Zendaya fan, does not care about Dune. And so watching that movie and getting it to the very, very end, it was just funny. But no, I'm glad that it was a hit, and I'm glad that we're going to get that part two, because I'm very excited to see what happens. Do you think that part two will be the end of it? Or
yeah, I think so. I mean, they're halfway through the story. I don't like, if you make this another 2.5 hour film, I think you could neatly portray the rest of the novel's events in that time frame. Yeah, if they split this into 3 parts, I think that would actually be kind of pushing it. You
gonna pull Hobbit on these movies.
Well, all right. Speaking of being biased, that probably adds a lot to my feelings on No Time to Die being my favorite. I'm a big Bond fan, and actually this year I got the Blu-ray box set as a gift.
Oh, of all the movies?
Of all the movies up to Spectre. So everything but this newest one. And I have just been going through and watching old Bond movies. I've been watching so many of them.
Dude, I've been doing the same recently too.
Yeah.
This is now a James Bond podcast, okay? Only Bond from now on.
No, but watching those old Bond movies gives me even much more of an appreciation for what No Time to Die is, which is like a very, in my opinion, a very, very satisfying conclusion to the Bond that changed who Bond was, which was Daniel Craig, right? And so, like, even on the fourth, movie in the series, they're still subverting all the things that you think that you know about Bond, while still maintain, in my opinion, pretty true to the character and like what Bond is supposed to be. And so I loved it. I was probably out of this group, I hate Spectre the least. I think that there's some strong feelings about that here. But I will 100% say that Spectre, I think, is the worst of the Craig Bond movies, just full stop. I really think that it was definitely a dip in quality. And this is from someone like, I actually like Quantum of Solace. I think it's a solid movie. It's underrated. I think that the only big problems with it are the action scenes are not done super well. But besides that, narratively, I actually really like it. Whereas I can't say that about Spectre. Spectre, like, if I could change that story, I would. I would just straight up just change the plot into something different. But that's neither here nor there. Whereas for this movie, I don't think I would change anything. I think I liked pretty much everything that they did with it. I loved the inclusion of the new characters and how they played off the old characters. I thought the action was fantastic. I thought that this Bond villain was actually like a much cooler Bond villain. In fact, even Adam, I think you've mentioned this to me, and I agree with you. They made Blofeld better in this movie than he was in the last movie. So just everything about it was great, and so I was just so happy to see kind of Craig back in form, and I loved it. I ended up seeing it. I saw it in theaters, and then I also saw it at home again. So I saw it twice, but I'm sure I'll see it more times later because I really did like it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely a solid film. As a conclusion to the whole Craig saga, I think it did the job pretty well. I've talked about how much I'm not a fan of Spectre, but this movie, I think it got what it needed to get right. It got right. Like, I enjoyed this movie. I think it is very well directed. The action scenes are pretty riveting. It's well shot. The director, Cary Joji Fukunaga, I'd like to see him return to the franchise, like direct the next film, because I think as a director, he did a very good job with the material. Minor complaints I have, sometimes the movie can just drag just a little bit, because they try to do a lot in this movie. There's a lot going on, which in a way I can kind of respect. But it's not that big of a complaint. It's a long movie, but you don't feel the runtime like you do in something like Spectre, which is the most boring movie I've ever seen in my life. Whereas in this, I was engaged for pretty much the entire runtime. And like I said before, as a conclusion to Craig's saga, as his portrayal of the character, it is fitting, I do believe. They take some risks that I actually kind of glad they did. Like, I thought, or it was just, nice to see them do something different. It's
one thing I really liked is that, so as I'm watching these old Bond movies, something that I think that the Bond people just haven't figured out how to do very well until this movie, in my opinion, is what happens when your actor for Bond is an old man. And some of the worst Bond moments ever is when you have some 60-year-old Bond actor romancing and schmoozing and doing all this stuff, and it just comes off like bad. Like
Hey,
it just.
I will not take
like
any
gross.
Roger Moore slander. Okay.
Yeah, I'm mostly directed at Roger Moore.
I will not tolerate any Roger Moore hate. Okay, I love him.
But yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I totally know what you mean. Yeah.
Some of it just feels so bad. Particularly those last few Roger Moore movies are almost like hard to watch unless you're watching them to laugh at them.
I like A View to a Kill.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I genuinely enjoy that film.
That's not the worst one, I think, of the last like three. But not because of him, because of the people around him. But anyway, it's not just him too. I think that there was old Sean Connery he wasn't as bad and he wasn't as old, but it was still just a little weird. And but this Bond like feels like he's older, and they acknowledge that he's older and that he's aged. Like he literally is a different person now than he was in Casino Royale. There was some real character development. Those old movies, they just pretended like Bond would get older physically, but his personality would stay exactly the same, and that always bothered me. And so I like that they actually had character development in a satisfying way in this movie that I just really appreciate.
Yeah, and I mean that is why Roger Moore left the role, right? Like,
yeah,
because he was like, no, I'm too old for this. Like, it's getting weird. So I think he decided to retire. I mean, yeah, that was the good choice.
But all right, I guess if that's the last thing to say on the favorite movies, we can move on to the next thing, which I'll just kind of provide some context of what we're going to do here. So if you saw our end of the year thing last year, we kind of went through like every single category and listed our favorite thing, favorite video game, favorite book, favorite album, and it just went on. And not everyone had really strong opinions about every single thing.
Have we talked about our least favorite?
That's last.
Oh, okay.
So this time, instead of doing that, what we're going to do is we're just going to pick one non-movie entertainment item. Can be any genre or anything, and we're just going to talk about that. And so there's probably a smaller chance that it'll be like the movies where there's some overlap of things that people have seen and stuff. But just in case there is, we'll do the same thing where everyone will just kind of name their thing and then have a discussion afterwards. So Adam, this time we'll start with you. What was your thing?
I guess if I just have to pick one thing, I'm going to pick a book. And my book is Jade War. And let me try and sell this premise to whoever, the 20 people who are watching this. If that. So, think like, what's the genre called again? Like wuxia films, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
How you pronounce? I think it's wushu.
Wushu? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah. It might be
Is
wuxia.
Maybe.
Wuxia.
I don't actually know Chinese, so.
Hopefully
Wushu's a martial. Isn't wushu like an actual martial art?
That does kind of.
I think that's what wushu is. Wuxia is the name for those those types of Hong Kong cinema.
I see. So the Hong Kong, yeah. So basically, it captures the vibe, and it has the martial arts, and actually kind of like the magical element of it, of like the martial arts while flying and doing stuff like that, right? Or and stuff like being extra human abilities. Cross that with The Godfather.
Okay.
And that is Jade City, and I highly recommend it. It was riveting.
Okay.
Great book.
All right. That's interesting just because like, you know, the wuxia films, like that's very much like a visual, you know, type of excitement. And like, you think they like translated that well to like the literary format?
Let's see. So what it does is it creates a premise for like basically it creates a fictional world where that kind of reality, that like martial arts reality, is baked into this little small island of the world because of a mineral, jade. Okay, and if you are like genetically predisposed to not get like addicted to it, then it will grant you like those powers, like the ability to like jump really high and to like deflect the bullets and stuff like that, right? And so the backdrop where this reality is like the Godfather, in the sense that the people who are predisposed to that just happen to also be criminal gangs within like a Hong Kong-esque city. Think like 1980s neon Hong Kong kind of like setting, like biker criminals and like gangs and stuff like that, and then fighting turf wars and stuff like that. And it's very, very character centric. You follow a couple different characters, and they're all different like members of one specific gang. And it, like I said, it's riveting. Like it's just, I like absolutely cared about all of the characters I was reading about by the end. It was great.
Definitely sounds interesting. Jade City.
Yep, Jade City. Yeah, there's another YouTuber I watch who basically does reviews of fantasy and science fiction novels and stuff like that. And that was his like #1 series. He was really trying to push it. And so I was like, okay, I'm curious. And now I'm doing it to a lesser audience. Now that I've read it.
You're doing your part, man. Every person counts.
It's great.
All right, JL, do you have a thing?
I do. And you know what? We're bringing it back to Bond, baby. We're bringing it back to 007. So, I am a big fan of the original GoldenEye video game for the N64. Some of you watching this may not know what that is. I don't know. It was a first-person shooter that came out in 1997. That's, you know, at the time it was considered, you know, pretty revolutionary, pretty influential. Playing that, though, on an original N64 console is just an experience that, unless you grew up with it, probably wouldn't be that much fun. But the company that developed that game, Rare, also made a game called Perfect Dark a few years later. And Perfect Dark kind of like got a remaster for like current Xbox consoles. Like if you've ever played Rare Replay, like Perfect Dark's on that. And it's essentially the same game, but it's a little bit remastered. So it turns out Rare actually developed something like that for GoldenEye back in like 2007. But because of just a lot of behind the scenes stuff, I'm sure lots of licensing things, it never got to be like completed or released. And it was mostly finished, like I'd say maybe 90%. But in 2021, a ROM of that remaster got leaked online.
Oh.
So, and you can look up videos on how to set that up and play it, but it works. And I've just, for like the past 2 weeks, I've just been playing GoldenEye. Like, honestly, that's what brought on my Bond interest recently, why I started rewatching all the movies. Because, like, I forgot how much I enjoyed this game, actually, because it's so much fun. And
You
technically, it is from 2021.
Yeah.
That's when it got leaked.
That's a cool story behind it, too.
Yeah.
Do you play with a controller, or do you point and click?
I use a controller. I think there's ways to set it up with a mouse and keyboard. Sometimes that kind of hurts my wrist though, so I don't like doing that too much. And like, the controller works fine for me. And I use an Xbox controller, and the controls are updated a little bit so that it's not whatever weird crap the N64 was using. Like
Sure.
it plays kind of like a modern shooter, like you move in straight with the left thumbstick, and then you just aim with the right one. And I think that game's a blast. I beat it through on Secret Agent difficulty, and then I went through and beat it on Double O Agent, which is hard mode, and it was like I'm a different man. Like I'm a better person for doing that. I am more manly now.
Well, all right. So for my choice, I thought about a couple things. I really liked the new Kanye West album. I liked Ted Lasso a lot that I saw this year. But ultimately, what I decided to do is some shameless self-promotion to talk about my EP that came out this year, Over the Years. If you go to any streaming service, you can type in Braden Walden, and it'll pop up on Spotify, and YouTube, Apple Music. And I think it's very relevant to bring up specifically on this podcast for two reasons. One, if you ever hear our intros at the beginning of these podcasts, both the original one and the new one, both of those ended up on that EP as full songs. So if you have been a long-time listener or curious, that's one reason to check it out. Another fun fact is that everyone here on this podcast was involved in some way on that album /EP. So 3 of the songs were basically, to varying degrees, co-written essentially by JL, some more than others. And then for Adam, I don't know if you even remember this, but there's a song I included there that I made in high school, and you helped me make that song.
Oh.
No, I definitely made most of it, but you edited it after the fact. You were kind of like my post-producer of that song. And that's the final track made in high school. So yeah, it was a lot of fun to make. Almost all the songs were just older files that I'd made years ago and then put them together. There's only one like truly new song on there, which I made with my friend Eric. It's my attempt at a hip hop song. So if all of this wasn't enough to convince you, maybe my bad rapping, just to check that out, maybe that's worth it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to make, and I hope that if you're listening to this, then maybe you'll check that out after, even if it's just for the novelty.
Just for the memes.
Yeah. But I hope you guys like it. All right. The very last thing we're going to talk about before we wrap up is, this podcast started out as a forum to complain about bad movies. That was the heart and soul about Amateur Theory for a while. The thing is, it kind of gets, kind of soul crushing to watch bad movie after bad movie for a while. You just start to not want to do it. But I'm just curious about, did you guys watch anything that you thought was a bad movie this year? Adam, I think you mentioned you had something, so what did you watch?
So shout out to Raya, The Last Dragon, which was the other Disney movie that technically came out this year, which wasn't bad in the sense that it was boring. It was actually pretty entertaining as far as them know. But it had this weird issue where it was trying to push a certain theme, like a certain message, and it undercut that message like all over the movie, like constantly. And so I can't put it as my worst movie because I thought it was pretty fun, the movie, but at the same time, like that always was weird to me. I felt like
that movie was such a blatant attempt to just rip off Avatar. It was literally like Disney's like, Avatar, that looks good, let's just make that movie. But worse.
Well, I don't know. My whole issue with that was basically like it was trying to convince us that the secret is everyone needs to trust each other. and the entire movie was showing how that was a terrible idea. Like every moment of that movie was showing how trusting people was a terrible idea. It was just such a weird, like, in any case, that I'm not going to go too much into. The movie that I liked least this year is, and it wasn't like so bad that it like was like really bad. I guess I didn't watch enough movies to watch a movie like that. But the reason I bring it up is just because it was so disappointing. Conjuring 3, which I've been. I didn't like it.
That was so. When you say Conjuring 3, you mean actual Conjuring 3, not the new Conjuring movie.
What's the new Conjuring movie?
It came out on HBO. It's called like Conjuring. Something about the devil.
Oh, that is the
Conjuring
one.
Reloaded.
3. The devil made me do it. Yeah.
Oh, that is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I didn't like it. And I don't know, because part of the problem is I liked the first 2. It kind of like established its own kind of tone as like a horror movie that like was kind of like scary in a fun way. Diminishing returns on that in the second film, but like not bad at all. But the third one just felt like it was like I almost feel like there isn't very much to say about it because it was just so insipid, like just kind of like sadly trying for the spark of creativity they had in the first one, and it just seeming like kind of I don't know, maybe tame is the right word, or maybe it was just like overwrought. I don't know. In any case, it's not bad enough for it to be a lot of fun to make fun of it, so I'll just leave it at that. It just wasn't that good. Yeah.
All right, Jill, did you have a worse movie?
So I didn't. I don't think I saw anything this year that was like truly like offensive to my senses. Out of all the movies that came out this year, so my least favorite was probably the new Fast and Furious movie. I think it's Fast 9. I mean, and this is the thing, like I haven't seen like the movie before this one. Like this isn't a series that I keep up with and am emotionally invested in, you know? Like I've seen some of the other movies before and have enjoyed them just because of how ridiculous and over the top they can get. That's always a plus. But in this movie, well, first of all, they don't have The Rock, which is, I'm sorry, big minus. I love that dude. At least in these movies. So a lot of a lot of the lead stuff has to go to Vin Diesel, who just I mean, his character is like he's stern and stoic, like because that's the thing with this movie. There's just a lot of scenes of people just talking to each other, or just sitting and standing or talking, which I don't care about these characters at all. I just want to see like cars do flips and like crash into shit. And when that happens, it's fairly fun. But other than that, like, it's just mostly bored. And that's the thing, like, for someone who's a fan of the series and maybe has kept up with it, maybe they'd enjoy it. If you do, that's great. But like, I wasn't really the target audience. So I wasn't expecting much, and I didn't get that much. But like I said, like, the movie didn't like, it wasn't offensive. It didn't make me angry or anything. It's not horrible. So yeah, I guess that's the worst thing I saw. That must have been a pretty good year for me.
All right. Well, I have a movie that did offend my sensibilities. That came out this year. Part of the reason that the reason I watched it in the first place is because I read the book, and the book, the movie is For Those Who Wish Me Dead, and it's certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So I just want to correct the record that this by no means is a fresh movie. It's a horrible movie. After I watched it, I thought like, oh man, I can't wait to read like people panning this, and no one did, and I don't understand how you could have possibly watched this and thought anything positive at all. But so the book is like a very standard, thriller kind of book, not at all some kind of literary. Think I'm trying to think of like those kind of authors, Dan Brown-ish, but less.
James Patterson.
James Patterson, that's a good one. Yeah, think James Patterson kind of book, right? For those who wish to be dead. And so the premise is like a fairly straightforward and somewhat interesting one. There's this kid, he witnesses a murder, and then the two people who did the murder chase him because he knows something, right? That's kind of interesting. It's like an interesting premise. So, and it's like not even, sometimes you can't translate things to a book, to a movie because you can't visualize it. But that's like a very visually compelling, you have a murder, someone saw it, they see the kid, bam. Instead, inexplicably, this movie decided that instead of the boy witnessing a murder, the boy's father should be involved with some kind of tax fraud thing. And so people want to kill the tax fraud man, but he writes all the secrets in a notebook, and then he tries to run away from the killers, and then he gives the secrets to his son, and that's why the people have to kill the son, you see, because the father knew. It was so horrible. Like, none of it was just so dumb. And I can't figure out why you would make that decision. This movie is, thankfully it's short, but it's so the movie is like an hour and 10 minutes or something. And they spend they do these like really long out drawn action shots that are really boring. Like I think there was at the very end of the movie, this does not add anything to the plot, right? There's just a character that we don't care about. We never learn anything about them. But there's a character, just a person, a random nobody, who jumps out of a plane and parachutes down to the ground. Now, to understand like a parachute thing, I can see the person jump, parachute releases, bam, shot's over. No. We watch the plane fly, the guy get up on the plane, jumps, we watch him fall, parachute comes out, he's no longer going fast, still watching him decline to the ground until we get him to touch base, this random nobody who's zero relevance to the plot. There's that whole scene could have been cut. You have an hour and 10 minutes to explain this whole movie, and you choose to like spend just weird amounts of time on scenes like that.
Hey,
it's a metaphor for the entire film.
A plane.
Yeah.
It was just so unbelievably stupid, and it's also like this movie bends over backwards to appeal to like a certain kind of like country boy aesthetic, where it's like, I don't know, it felt like pandering to me. I guess I'm not the target audience, so someone who's like more into that scene would have to tell me, but it felt like someone who knew nothing about country music or anything trying to make something what they think people who liked that would like. Like maybe they would like an army man parachuting to the ground for a minute instead of any kind of plot happening. Let's just do that instead. And so yeah, the movie was just terrible. It was just truly, truly awful. But we're running a little over, so I'm just gonna keep it at that. You don't need to watch it. Hopefully you've never heard of it. Probably most people haven't, but if you read the book, you don't need to see the movie adaptation. Yeah, that's it. Appreciate you touching in with us, your dear listeners, in this new year, 2022. We will be back, hopefully before the end of 2022, but maybe it'll spill over to 2023. I don't know. But, definitely hit subscribe and notifications on so that when that happens, you will be have the latest from Amateur Theory Podcast. And with that, thank you for listening. Until next time.
Amateur Theory will return.
Yes.